Well, hello there. Thanks for joining me. I am Dr. Jen, and I'm so pleased that you've joined me for today's show of my life as a landlord. Today, we're exploring location-specific tenancy guidelines for Kentucky. And as in all of my location-specific episodes, I've included many hyperlink resources in the show notes. So be sure to check everything out. And if we find more while I'm recording, I will add them to the show notes as well. So each of my location specific podcasts is set up in the exact same way, answering the same four questions each time. First, what are the basics of that location's tenancy laws? In this case, Kentucky. Second, what are the nuances about this location? What kind of stands out? What's different? Third, what is some guidance about abandoned items a tenant might leave behind regarding personal property? And four, where to get help in your local area of Kentucky. What do you do? And then at the very end of the episode, I'll go through what I call my bingo card, which is my list of the most standard items I see when I do these location specific episodes. I'll review what's there, what's missing, and even what's extra. But I must tell you that there are likely more guiding documents than what I'm going to give to you here. And especially if you are an existing Kentucky landlord or about to be, you may know of some additional ones, especially after this recording. Even if I get 100% right on this recording, as soon as this is done and airs, 5 minutes later, the laws could change. So you must do your own research for your own local areas, especially there are some nuances depending on which county you're in Kentucky. So this episode is not all inclusive. You must do your own research. There's your disclaimer. I'm going to give a shout out to today's sponsor, Aloha Capital Investments LLC. If you want to know more about real estate investing and how you can participate potentially, check out alohajv.com. Okay, here we go. I'm going to go ahead and screen share. So if you're watching on YouTube at My Life as a Landlord, you can follow along as I look through the different hyperlinks that I'm going to show you here. So this first one is the Kentucky General Assembly. And so this is the Kentucky Revised Statutes. And it is for landlord, it's for residential landlord tenancy stuff, but it's not everything, right? And so remember, tenancy laws are indeed a law, right? And so you can see some of these. And they're not usually in order of any. So recovery of rent, property subject to distress or attachment from rent, procedure, lien for rent. Some of these have been repealed, forcible entry and detainer, and all these are hyperlinks, right? So you can go through the whole thing. And this is the actual law, right? Protected, afforded victims of domestic violence or abuse, dating violence. And then Uniform Residential Landlord and Tenant Act. So there is the actual act all the way down here. In fact, we can start looking at this. Let's just go to Principles, Law, and Equity, Construction. No, no, no. Let's go to definitions. That's always a good place to start. See if the definitions are right. Okay. Oh, these are hyperlinks, but they all open into a PDF. Okay. Well, the good news is that these are in alphabetical order. I have seen some glossaries that are not, which is really kind of confusing. So let's just see. They define a roomer or boarder. Oh, security deposit. Security deposit means an escrow payment made to the landlord under the rental agreement for the purpose of securing the landlord against financial loss due to damage to the premises occasioned by the tenant's occupancy other than ordinary wear and tear. There it is. Ordinary wear and tear. And then they define willful at the very end. This is great. Willful means deliberate intention, not accidentally or inadvertently, meaning it's done according to a purpose. So they define willful, which is kind of cool. Not every place does. That's cool. Um, they also define unconscionable. This is interesting. Unconscionable means an act or conduct which is willful and so harsh and unjust as would be condemned or considered to be wrongful and would be shocking to the conscience of honest and fair-minded persons. Honest and fair-minded persons. Unconscionable. This is cool. Goodness. The fact that they've even defined that is kind of alarming, right? Goodness sakes. And there's others. So I'm going to go back. I'm just going to hit the back button. Definitions, good faith obligation, unconscionability. Here it is right here. So unconscionability, this is court. Basically, if the landlord does something unconscionable, unenforceable. Terms and conditions of the rental agreement. I'm just going to kind of make our way through this because there is quite a bit on here. And of course, it references other Kentucky revised statutes. Let's see. Rent is payable without demand or notice at the time and place agreed upon by the parties. Unless otherwise agreed, rent is payable at the dwelling unit and periodic rent is payable at the beginning of any term, 1 month or less, or otherwise in equal monthly installments. Uh, Unless otherwise agreed, rent is uniformly apportionable from day to day. Interesting. Okay, so it does, yeah, that's interesting. All right, let's keep going. Security deposits. Security deposits looks like they do make you put it into a special place. So it says all landlords of residential property requiring security deposits prior to occupancy shall be required to deposit all tenant security deposits in an account used only for that purpose in any bank or lending institution subject to regulation by the Commonwealth of Kentucky or any agency of the U.S. government. There it is. Prospective tenants shall be informed of the location of the separate account and the account number. Interesting. Okay. Security deposits has got to be either Kentucky or U.S. bank. Separate account, which is normal. All of my deposits are in separate accounts. And you must tell the tenant the account number, where it is, and the account location and account. Cool. Okay, so it doesn't say how much it should be. Um, let's see. Because there's typically a limit. So it's talking about returning security deposits. Okay, this is one of the bingo card items. In the event the tenant leaves not paying last month's rent and does not demand a return of the deposit, the landlord may, after 30 days, remove the deposit from the account and apply such to the excess of the debt owing. Okay. This is just reading through here because this is very legalese. So in the event the tenant leaves not owing rent, having any refund due, the landlord shall send notification to the last known or reasonably determinable address, which may be that of the rental unit, the amount the refund due to the tenant. In the event the landlord shall not have received a response from the tenant within 60 days, the landlord may remove the deposit from the account and retain it free and from any claim from the tenant or person claiming on their behalf. Doesn't actually say how much the security deposit is supposed to be. It just says how to do it. That's interesting. I don't know what the hell that is. Okay, that's all right. Disclosure, possession, okay, maintenance and agreements, limitation of liability, access. Let's go in here. So now remember, this is just the first resource. We're actually going to go through the rest of them as well. So I don't want to just dwell on every one of these, but access. So a tenant has to agree they cannot unreasonably withhold consent to the landlord to enter the dwelling to inspect, make necessary agreed upon repairs, decorations, alterations, improvements, supply necessary agreed services, or exhibit the dwelling unit to prospective or actual purchasers, mortgagees, tenants, workmen, contractors. And landlord may enter the dwelling unit without consent in the case of an emergency, which is normal. And then the landlord shall not abuse the right of access or use it to harass the tenant, except in case of emergency or unless it's impractical to do so. The landlord shall give the tenant at least 2 days' notice of intent to enter and may only enter at reasonable times. No work hours are noted here, but often other locations do actually say the days of the hours that they are supposed to enter, but normal is fine, not 3 a.m., right? Tenants use and occupancy, landlord, tenants remedies to unlawful ouster, exclusion, diminution of service, failure to pay rent. Let's just go in here because hopefully it'll talk about the unpaid rent. Okay, so this talks about mischief. So the landlord may deliver written notice to the tenant specifying acts and omissions constituting a breach in the lease, and that the rental agreement will terminate not less than 14 days after the receipt. If the breach is not remedied in 15 days, the rental agreement shall terminate. So basically, they have to smarten up. And then this says, let's see. Oh, and if they do it again, if there's a trend, whatever it was that they were doing, if substantially the same act or omission which constituted prior noncompliance of which notice was given recurs within the next 6 months, the landlord may terminate the rental agreement. Yep. And I have something similar too, and just saying whatever it is that you're doing, either smarten up and don't do it for 6 months, or we now have a trend. And then the next one is if rent is unpaid when due and the tenant fails to pay the rent within 7 days after written notice by the landlord of non-payment and intention to terminate the rental agreement. If the rent is not paid, the landlord may terminate the rental agreement. So 7 days. Okay, so it doesn't talk about a late fee. We might get into that. We'll see. Remedies for absence, non-use, and abandonment. Let's talk about this. Maybe there's some abandonment stuff in here. Let's see. If the rental agreement requires the tenant to give notice to the landlord of an anticipated extended absence in excess of 7 days, as required by the applicable statute, the tenant willfully fails to do so, the landlord may recover actual damages from the tenant. During any absence of the tenant in excess of 7 days, the landlord may enter the dwelling unit at times reasonably necessary, and if the tenant abandons the dwelling unit, the landlord shall make reasonable efforts to rent it at fair rental, and if the landlord rents the dwelling unit for a term beginning before the expiration of the rental agreement, it terminates as of the date of the new tenancy. Basically, if someone abandons it and their lease is still in force, someone comes back in and they re-rent it, then they're no longer on the hook. So it sounds like there's a bit of an escalation agreement or escalation clause in Kentucky, meaning if you sign a 1 year agreement and you can't actually fulfill that 1 year, that the rent is actually due, that the tenant is still responsible to complete that lease. And it sounds backwards. In British Columbia, it's not. You can sign a 1 year lease with a tenant and it obligates the landlord, but it doesn't mean, so the tenant can break the lease and they're not required to pay the rest of the lease. And so it sounds like in Kentucky that it is required. Interesting. Okay, landlord's lien or security interest distrain for rent. A lien or security interest on behalf of the landlord in the tenant's household goods is not enforceable. Yeah, you can't do that. You can't take their personal property if they owe you money. Periodic tenancy holdover remedies, meaning it a fixed lease ends abruptly. So that means that they've got to get out. It does not automatically convert. So the landlord or tenant may terminate a week-to-week tenancy by written notice given to each other 7 days before the termination, or if it's month-to-month tenancy that's terminating, by written notice given to the other party at least 30 days before the periodic rental date. Then the landlord or the tenant may terminate the tenancy begun upon termination. Okay, this is getting very technical. It's basically 10 days. They have written notice 10 days before the termination date. Yeah. If the tenant remains in possession without the landlord's consent after the expiration of the term of the rental agreement or its termination, landlord may bring action for possession, and if the tenant's holdover is willful and not in good faith, basically they're squatting, then the landlord can recover the amount not more than 3 months periodic rent. So they could actually get 3 months rent, but then what about damages and stuff, right? It's not actually over. Okay. So there are other ones in here, and I know that there's a few more that we're going to get into. So, but let me go to the next hyperlink that we've got in here. This one is ky.gov. This is the official website of the Attorney General Russell Coleman, Commonwealth of Kentucky. And so this one, they have an entire page, they have a whole section on rental housing. So this is going to be actually quite helpful because some of these other tenancy laws don't actually say what it is. They just talk about the thing, right? So they talk about the lease binding legal agreement, and it should contain a number of things: description of the premises, length of time the lease is to be in effect, name and address of the landlord or the owner who receives legal notices on his or her behalf, amount of the rent, its due date, where it should be paid, associated late charges. So there is a late charge in there. We just don't know what it is. Termination requirements, landlord's rules and regulation, and whose responsibility for utility payments to include lawn mowing and gardening if that's applicable, and snow removal. That's important too. So just throwing that in there is that it's not just utility payments. Okay, security deposit. Serves as the insurance to the landlord that the unit will be inhabited for a set period of time. Usually it serves as damage deposit too. But before paying a deposit, which sometimes equals 1 or 2 months rent, so it looks like it could depend 1 or 2 months rent, up to 2 months rent. Okay, that's the first time we've seen that, and that's the 2 months rent for security deposit. Okay, security deposit. Okay, so you've got to ask the person in charge the exact amount of the deposit, the purpose of the deposit, and the conditions that will affect its refund, and when the refund will be made. Guidelines to avoid problems: know the rental situation before you sign, read your lease. Make sure you have a lease. That's also good. Before renting, you and your landlord should inspect the house, the apartment together, meaning a move-in inspection. Any existing pre-existing damages or poor conditions could later be charged to you out of the security deposit. Try to maintain good relations with your landlord or property manager. Report problems immediately to the landlord or manager. Tenant responsibility. So it's pretty simple. Pay rent on time, behave, keep your unit clean and as safe as possible. Don't damage or do any willful damage. Don't remove parts of the property, and respect everyone's right to peace and quiet, including your neighbors. Moving. Okay, so it's talking about proper notice to depart. Give 30 days written notice. Eviction. Remember that withholding your rent can be considered non-payment and may subject you to eviction. Let's see. Right to entry, we talked about this. Subletting, many leases forbid you from subletting. To sublet is to allow someone else to occupy your apartment and pay rent while you are bound by the terms of a lease. If you're able to sublet and wish to, you may be responsible if the person you sublet doesn't pay the rent or damages the property because it still is on the lease. Then it talks a bit about discrimination. And of course, they have their phone numbers down below. And so if you're stuck, I'm going to give you some more resources at the end of this episode, but if you're stuck, you can at least start there and just say, hey, I'm a landlord and I've got this problem, and they could probably get you going in the right direction. Okay, this one, I found this PDF. This is the Barren River Area Renters Handbook. And so this does not apply to everywhere in Kentucky. This is only in certain counties: Allen, Barren, Butler, Edmondson, Hart, Logan, Metcalfe, Monroe, Simpson, Warren. I'm not going to go through this in detail because it depends on where you are. And so there's other places that have different issues, different things. And you want to make sure that you are looking at the right stuff. So if one of these counties is you, this may still be valid, but you also want to make sure, yeah, it says this handbook is not a substitute for legal advice. So make sure that it's even got checklists. This is actually cool. If this applies to you, great, use it. But if it doesn't, make sure you're looking at the right thing because it could be a little bit different based on where you are. Oh, this is cool. It's got a little checklist for understanding the lease. This is actually really good for a lease addendum. Penalties for late payment when penalties start. That is actually really helpful. Quiet hours. Oh, I like it. I like it. Okay. Get it in writing. Yep. All right, let's go to the next one. Okay, so this one I found, this was specifically about abandoned of rented or leased personal property. This was all about personal items if someone's abandoned it. So person means an individual, partnership, association, corporation. Address means the place, the unit that's rented. Personal property means household furnishings and appliances. That's good to understand. I get it. So this one, a person who rents or leases personal property under an agreement to relinquish possession of property is under an agreement to relinquish possession of such property. So I guess it's like repo? You're not supposed to remove personal property to another address or relinquish custody of the property without first giving the leaseor at least 10 days written notice. Okay. So there you go. Usually in an abandoned item situation, there is a time frame where you have to notify people that things are there, that you have their stuff. And even if you know that they're in the hospital or they're in jail or something's going on, maybe they're out of the country, whatever, you still have to provide the written notice. And it says delivered in person or by certified mail with return receipt requested. And then you've got to there seems to be a always a dollar amount, like before a threshold of a dollar amount that you can do something one thing with, and then above a threshold or dollar amount, then you can do another. And then depending on what it is, in Kentucky, it you looks like between 50 and $200, which is not a lot of money. Hmm. So the whole idea here is that, oh, they were trying to defraud. This might not be the right one. Okay. All right, let's keep going. I've got a bunch of these hyperlinks here, and they are present. Oh, here we go. This is what we're looking for. I'm going to take this one out. So that was the abandoned items one. I'm going to take that hyperlink out. That's actually not helpful at all. I'm going to do that one. That one's gone. Okay. Forget that other one. I'm not taking that one. Okay, so this one is the abandonment of stuff. So when a property is presumed abandoned, let's just click on that one and see what comes up. Oh, yes, this is much longer. Okay. So this is very entertaining because it says the following property shall be presumed to be abandoned if it is unclaimed by the apparent owner during the period specified below. Traveler's check 15 years after issuance. Money order 7 years after issuance. Okay, so this is talking about monetary instruments. Maybe not property or personal property in a rental situation. No, it doesn't look like that's the right one. Okay. Tax deferred retirement account, security presumed abandoned. Here we go. Knowledge of a death of insured or an annuitant. So, no, this is not what I'm looking for. Rules for taking custody of property presumed to be abandoned. Address, custody, burden of proof. See, this can get super, super detailed. Like we're not talking a whole lot about rental stuff, personal property. Right now, we're way down a rabbit hole about abandonment stuff. Okay, well, I'll leave that hyperlink in there so because it might be helpful at some point. Let's go here. Kentucky legal aid. I typically will go legal aid and any legal, like the Kentucky bar is in here as well. And I will typically keep this stuff in here because you honestly can go straight to them and say, I'm a landlord, I have this problem, what do I do? And they will help you, and you may need to pay for a consult, but so what? It gives you some idea of what you're supposed to be doing. So, Kentucky legal aid, I'm just going to scroll down here. And it looks like it's providing legal services to 35 different counties. I'm not going to read them all, but it looks like South Central and Western Kentucky. So it looks like, yeah, on that side. Okay. So it's not everything. This is, again, it just depends on where you are. Oh, there's United Way. So there's a bunch of different locations and offices that you can call. And let's see if they've got anything, how we work, what we do get involved. Okay, let's just go to the next one. This one's Kentucky Court of Justice, legal self-help. And so this one is also regional as well, civil legal aid programs. And so you've got Region 1, that's the Western area that's based in Bowling Green, Legal Aid Society. And Region 2 is in Louisville. 3 is in Lexington and 4 is in Prestonsburg. And then you've got all your different locations that they all serve. But legal self-help, I'm just going to go back for a moment. Let's just go to legal self-help portal. Guided interviews. Okay. Okay. Domestic. Small claims. Now, small claims is always applicable when you've got a security deposit, because the security deposit is not part of the housing. And so if you don't give up security deposit as a landlord, you could be taken to small claims to get a court order. The tenant could get the court order to give it to you. Okay, how to get help from the 4 legal aid programs in Kentucky. And there is a Appalachian Research and Defense Fund. This is interesting. Oh, this is from the Kentucky Bar Association. That's what this is. So they've got a phone number here, 1-866-277-5733. And Kentucky Legal Aid of Bluegrass, Legal Aid Society. So there's lots of different places that you can call. You just want to go to your correct county or city, whatever is applicable, and ask a few questions. And very interesting because this isn't really helping anything that we've talked about. So I'm just going to change it up and I'm going to do this on the fly. I don't normally do this. Normally I have everything done and researched and I answer all my own questions. This one has not really answered anything. So I'm just going to go Kentucky Housing Help and I'm just going to put that in there. Now, qualify for hardship relief and Kentucky Housing Corporation. That's probably public housing, affordable housing hub, rental assistance. Um, I'm going to change this instead of housing help. I'm going to say tenancy. Okay, housing choice voucher, free Kentucky lease agreement, Rocket Lawyer. Yeah, Rocket Lawyer. You got to kind of be aware of some of these. Frequently asked questions, Kentucky. Okay, this one might be interesting. Let's go to this one. So, Team Kentucky Eviction Diversion Program, general questions. Okay. Okay, that's not exactly what I'm looking for either. Okay, you know what? I'm going to go back to this, the Uniform Residential Landlord and Tenant Act, because even though every single one of these is a different PDF, that seems like that's what you've got. I would be surprised if some other housing provider like Legal Aid or the Bar doesn't have like a brochure or user's guide. And there is the one from the this one, the Bar area, Barren River area, Renter's Handbook. Um, and I'm just thinking if I should go through this one or not. Get your security deposit back. Yeah, I'm just going to scroll through here because we don't seem to have a whole lot of other resources here, which kind of surprises me. So if you are a Kentucky landlord and you are just new or you're about to be a Kentucky landlord, make sure you are asking questions in your local area because usually this is super easy. Oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do Kentucky Tenancy YouTube videos. I don't normally do this, but I'm having a lot of issues. What are my rights as a tenant? Understanding tenant rights in, okay, landlord tenant overview in Kentucky. Oh, it's from 2011. Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay, so what are your rights as a tenant? How some Kentucky counties? And this is from someone named Sandy McKay. This is probably a lawyer of some kind. Um, in fact, it's only 2 minutes. We're just going to watch it real quick. What are your rights as a tenant? How some
Have you ever wondered what
Kentucky?
your rights are as a tenant in multifamily real estate? Understanding these rights can be crucial to ensuring a fair and balanced relationship between tenants and landlords. Welcome to the Multifamily Real Estate Insights podcast. I'm your host, Sandy McKay. Let's get right to it. Today, we're exploring tenant rights and how they relate to multifamily real estate. taking inspiration from a recent article by Stephanie Kusidim, published in the Louisville Courier Journal. The article discusses the Uniform Residential Landlord and Tenant Act, known as URLTA, which aims to balance the property rights of landlords with the privacy, health, and safety rights of tenants. The URLTA, enacted in Kentucky, provides a framework that could be beneficial if applied more broadly across different regions, including here in Ontario. It
Oh,
includes rights such as the right to a habitable living space, protection from illegal eviction, and the right to privacy. These principles are critical in maintaining a harmonious landlord-tenant relationship in the multifamily sector. In Ontario, tenant rights are governed by the Residential Tenancies Act, which offers similar protections. Tenants have the right to safe and well-maintained premises, protection against unlawful rent increases, and the right to due process in eviction cases. These rights ensure that tenants can enjoy their homes without unwarranted interference. The article highlights how legal frameworks like URLTA are adopted in various counties and cities within Kentucky, demonstrating how local governments can take the initiative in protecting tenant rights. Here in Ontario, we see similar efforts, although the scope and application may vary. The key takeaway is that tenants should be aware of their rights and the legal recourse available to them. As multifamily real estate investors, it's important to stay in.
okay. That was absolutely not what I was expecting. Yeah, I'm really hesitant to do a even the YouTube was is kind of sparse on this. This actually really surprises me because typically we have way more. What is this? Kentucky landlord law. Okay, let's go here. I don't normally go to different firms, like specific firms or even national landlord stuff, but in this case, I'm actually kind of surprised. There's really not a lot of like public user-friendly stuff that is helping. Um, so KentuckyLandlordLaw.com looks like that would be a good lease package, includes a bunch of stuff. And no 14-day notice to correct or vacate, 14-day notice to vacate, notice of non-renewal for both. Well, I mean, there's an offer. I'll throw that into, it's not an endorsement, but it's a different way that you can get yourself um, help. And they have courses solving the legal puzzle for landlords. That's interesting. But good for him. Okay. Um, an in-depth ride to tenants' rights in Kentucky. You know, maybe that we've pieced it together enough here. So this is from January of 2025. I'm recording this in November of 2025. So privacy is a big deal. No discrimination, of course. You can't do that. Common issues, importance of lease agreements. I'm just sort of at a loss here. Resources for Kentucky renters, support and advocacy. Um, and you can post a legal service request. Interesting. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there. I'm just going to go through my bingo card and see what we didn't get. But it looks like if you are stuck, you've got to reach out to one of these places because um, this is really sort of amazing that we don't have better resources except for this one, the Barren River area user. Usually there's more than one of these and there isn't one, but I really like this though. Read the lease and answer the following questions for your lease agreement. That's really good. Um, this is actually really ground level, like grassroots. If this is your first rental, this is actually a really good checklist. I'm actually pleasantly surprised. A good lease checklist. And move-in day, what to do. And while you live there, always pay your rent first. Avoid payday loans. That's interesting to have that in here. Do not withhold your rent. Make a complaint when it's time to leave. Clean. How to protect your rights. So it says none of the cities and counties in the Barren River area have adopted the URLTA. The answers given in this handbook assume that the URLTA does not apply. Okay, so that's why. Okay, so maybe that's the difference is that you've got one part that's URLTA and then you've got the other. Okay, now I got it. Okay, thank you, Kentucky landlords. I got it. So you've got this is part of it, and then the other one is the URLTA. Okay, that's why it's sort of disjointed. That makes sense. Um, Protecting rights. What if you're evicted? What to do? This talks about going to court, community resources. There's a bunch of resources in here. And again, you want to make sure you've got the correct resources for you. Um, Victims of discrimination. Yeah, if you need legal help but do not qualify for assistance, call your local county attorney or the local bar association for a reference for legal counsel. And then there is Barren River Area County Attorney Directory, which is here. The directories are here. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm just going to go through my bingo card for Kentucky, which is it's kind of a hodgepodge. I'm actually kind of surprised that it's so disjointed, but well, let's just sort of get our way through this. A lot of questions were not answered at all during this bingo card. So if you're a Kentucky landlord, please reach out to me because I want to interview you on the podcast because this is really confusing and I would like to get someone, maybe I'll call that attorney and ask him to come on the show because I don't understand this, what it is. So, but I'm going to go through my bingo card. We're going to try to do as much as we can. Okay, bingo card starting. Tenant application fee. Didn't say anything about it. Grace period for late rent without penalty. It looks like it's 7 days. I'm not sure if that's applicable to the whole state though. Late fee amount, is it a percentage, a flat amount, or max amount? It doesn't say at all. Security deposit method looks like it is a payment and it depends if it's 1 or 2 months, but it must be kept, excuse me, in a separate account. And the tenant must be told where it's kept and the account number. There is some wording and details on what needs to be in a lease. And there wasn't anything discussed about an emergency contact required in the event of tenant abandonment, incapacitation, death, or imprisonment. Doesn't say anything about pets or animals regarding pet deposit or pet rent. There doesn't appear to be any requirement of a delivery of the signed lease. They do talk about condition inspections that move in and move out. Standard warning letters or wording. Nope, didn't see it. Required maintenance inspections. Also didn't see it. How often can the rent be increased? I didn't see anything regarding rent increase, rent control, nothing about pricing. No notice of rent increases, no notice of how much it can increase. No interest about renter's insurance, did not talk about it at all. Is abuse of access defined? Yes. Is landlord retaliation defined or timing regarding time of eviction, a rental increase, or a retaliatory decrease of services? It didn't talk about landlord retaliation at all that I saw. Is the end of a fixed lease abrupt? It appears that it is abrupt because they did use the words holdover. Condition inspection at move out, yes. Return of deposit or bond timing. It looks like it is looks like there's within 60 days, the tenant has to request it, but there's not a whole lot more than that. Can you use the last the deposit as last month's rent? It looks like you can. How long can you give notice of eviction due to non-payment of rent or utilities? Looks like 14 days for both non-payment of rent and for mischief. And abandoned items, value, administrative, inventory, storage, timing, disposition instructions, all the abandoned items, it seemed very vague. And so I'm not sure. That's the answer. This one was kind of a big question mark, you guys, which is not my norm. I normally have a lot more value to this. But like I say, if you are a seasoned Kentucky landlord, even if you're not seasoned, just reach out to me because I think we need some more help on this one from somebody that's got boots on the ground rentals in Kentucky. Okay, so let's wind it up. Each of my location specific podcasts is set up in the exact same way, answering the same four questions. One, what are the basics of that location? Two, what are the nuances of that location? Three, some guidance about abandoned items left behind by a tenant. And four, where to get help in that local area. And in this case, you've got several regions to go to in the state of Kentucky. I then reviewed my bingo card of standard items, a lot of which I had no idea. We didn't learn a whole lot from the documents that we found. But just know that if you're looking in another location that you want to know how their tenancy laws work, hopefully they'll have more information than Kentucky. This is kind of a one-off. You'll already know that what I'm going to talk about just in a different location. One more time, the disclaimer, this episode is not all inclusive. You must do your own research further, especially since I was not able to give you a whole lot of value. I'm kind of shocked actually. So you want to make sure you're talking with your local area, whether your city, your county, your region. You need to get into the weeds if you are a Kentucky landlord here. If you're listening to this podcast, chances are you're either new to real estate or you're new to real estate in Kentucky, or you want to learn a little bit more. Things you can do to help yourself are educate yourself and answer a lot of questions, or get into the places where other landlords in Kentucky are having conversations, both in person and virtual. And you can jump on social media and say, hey, I'm a Kentucky landlord and this is my problem. And typically, a lot of landlords will jump out. I hope you enjoyed today's show all about Kentucky. Don't forget to subscribe for more expert advice and real life stories from across the rental property world on My Life as a Landlord. We're recording this episode today from Maui, Hawaii. Why? Because real estate takes you places. Where do you want real estate to take you? Join me in the next episode live right now in the library, episode 196 about the great state of Illinois. I'll see you there.